What does Section 208 mean to you in your position in Mahoning County?
So Section 208 for my position means a lot of things. First of all, it's the essentially legal guidelines and strategic means for us to look at all our water quality, wastewater, and environmental planning as it pertains to our department. We're sanitary engineering, so we think of it as operation, maintenance, and new infrastructure. It's pretty much our three main elements. And everything we do is essentially defined by the 208 because we have to look at where our watersheds are, what our needs are, where there's failing septic systems, where there's serious critical infrastructure repair and needs. So to me, 208 is, and just in nature, a grant person, a grant coordinator, a research, a policy person, the 208 is like our whole, basic guiding framework to determine where we're at, where we'd like to be, and how we get there. And that is being able to work our department needs into the 208 in a way that allows us to do what we need to do.
When you look at the region as a whole, where do you see the challenges for 208 planning?
Actually, I think one of our main challenges specific to our 208 planning is the population shifts and old infrastructure versus the need for new infrastructure. And that means looking at the guidelines and blueprints and the maps of the 208 that was even just looked at, reviewed, revised, even 10 years ago. We look and see, okay, this isn't the need of where we're having septic issues. This isn't where we're having, development needs, and we need to work quickly with our, partnering agencies to ensure that the 208 plan and subsequently the 201s are matching where we are, but then where we need to be. So, I mean, from a regional standpoint, it's just been, in my mind, Mahoning County, traditionally, a lot of our infrastructure we had in more, I would say, the northeast quadrant of the county. And we see a lot of movement south and west that does not have infrastructure that's as rapidly meeting the needs of the population growth. So to me, the planning, it's so crucial, the 208 is so crucial to looking at the county and thinking, okay, this is where we are, but where are we going to be in 5 years? Where are we going to be in 10 years? And this stuff has to coordinate.
So you see the 208 plan as a community type plan, community planning. It should be more accurate with where the population trends are.
Absolutely, because I think it's so important that everybody understands the importance of water quality, our watersheds, and how that should be a part of our economic development and strategic planning when you're looking at a county and providing resources, and how important obviously water and sewer infrastructure is to economic development and to residential needs in relationship to a clean environment and clean watersheds. So I think it's a sometimes underutilized tool that we need to be looking at as how are we incorporating the 208s into our economic development planning, because that 9 times out of 10 when we get a phone call discussing a new business that's going in, and the question is there water and sewer resources infrastructure there, often we find our 208 is maybe behind where that company is looking at locating where we need to be. And I think we're not even necessarily behind, but just not looked at as a coordinating piece to economic development. So from my perspective, as somebody that's the grants coordinator in a sanitary engineering department, we're always interested in the 208s, our partnership and process with the metropolitan planning organizations, the different economic development components, as to how we need to be working on the 208 on a regular basis.
Do you have a success story from your dealings with Mahoning County that you'd like to share?
Sure, absolutely. So couple, but one that comes to mind that's very current right now is we had 14 homes in an area of the county that everywhere else was sewered. For one reason or another, these 14 homes were just never made it into any sanitary engineering plans to do this, have that area sewered. There were 14 unsewered homes on septic systems. We found that there was some malfunctioning septic systems, and it was very, very, very close in proximity to the Yellow Creek watershed. When I say close, I mean a stone's throw away. So it became very apparent that that was an area that we needed to move up on a priority list. Actually, quite honestly, it hadn't even necessarily been on our radar. It was an area that, like I said, around the rest of the area, everything else had access to sanitary, sewer lines in our wastewater treatment plant. So that was kind of like utilizing the 208 and showing the importance of the Yellow Creek watershed helped us with scoring and on our grant applications and allowed us to get funding for this particular project in my mind, when we might not necessarily have been able to make the environmental argument, but we were able to because of the 201 maps and some of the language in the 208 to say, look, this is an important watershed. We need to ensure that we get rid of this environmental hazard, so let's get these folks off of the septic systems and get them onto our sanitary sewer system. So that was one particular example, and the residents of that area were very vocal and interested and partners in the process and understood what they felt was a potential for an environmental problem. So that was, to me, that's one success story among a lot, because we in Mahoning County right now, we're doing a lot of work on making changes to the 201s, because we're really restructuring a lot of making major changes to our Boardman wastewater treatment plant to take on expansion, putting in some force mains and different things and pumping stations, and going to take one of our wastewater treatment plants offline. So right now we've been working hand in hand with Eastgate in ensuring that everything's good, because this is a major shift of our wastewater treatment plant operations in the county. So obviously we look at that too for all our future economic development, growth, and planning. The 208 is going to be very important.
Can you talk about the level of collaboration and how important that is with regards to the 201 permitting process for the infrastructure to ensure that everything is done in a timely manner? So one about the collaboration and how that collaboration fits into the timeline of making your adjustments in a 201.
Absolutely. So everything obviously for a wastewater treatment plant and getting our permits to install, you have to work backwards, right? You have to look at where do we need to be before we could submit X, Y, Z. So for us, it's the first is having the conversation with Eastgate to see where we need to be with changes to the 201 and the 208. And then all the small municipalities or townships that are going to be affected. And for this one of our recent changes, you're talking about you have to meet with all the important people with the cities, that's the city mayors, the city council, and then the sanitary engineer, our department, the road department in case there's any permitting needs from ODOT, then the county commissioners. So collaboration is huge for a project like anything like that, making those type of changes. You're talking about the planning department. Everybody needs to be brought, to the discussion at some point or other to understand that this is what needs to happen legally for us to do X, Y, Z. So I mean, for us, I think we try to get out in front of things, you know, as far out planning, sometimes, you know, 2 years, to start looking at when this stuff has to happen, and then 6 months, 9 months out to when you're getting to the position of you have to submit, you know, work with our consultants. I mean, there's a whole engineers, there's a lot of people who have to be involved in the process, and of course the public. We have to have, you know, public meetings and discussions and make sure everybody knows what's going on and what's going to occur. So we're always at minimum 6 months, 6 months out, 9 months out, a year out, to then you get to the 3 months and to when you're actually going to submit things. And for grant applications, if that's a necessity to be part of a grant application, sometimes you have to look at 2 years out and look at 2-year cycles to make sure that every I is dotted and T is crossed with the right partners and collaboration.
How do you view the 208 plan with regards to water quality and protecting surface waters and our drinking water sources? How does the 208 plan play into that?
I think that the 208 is very important too. We often have some discussions and needs for looking at runoff and point source pollution and different things like that, that the 208 is facilitator of those discussions. Things that we don't necessarily think about but that are important to, you know, clear water and different things that are pertinent to sanitary engineering. So I think that it's very important in terms of our water quality planning, and oftentimes I think sometimes in the public mind, water and sewer are separate, but I think we need to work on bridging that gap and explaining how the 208 encompasses everything and how water and sewer are so related. So to me, it's incredibly important to look at not only economic development planning, but environmental planning. I mean, in my mind, the 208 kind of bridges that divide, because we need this for our water and sewer infrastructure, but at the same time we have to place a greater priority and standards on our environment. So I mean, I think they blend together well, and they're both equally important in that sense.